So I have made many videos on the Kingkiller Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss. My theory videos were kind of the first videos that really helped grow my channel originally, and I still get people asking me all the time what the correct reading order is for the Kingkiller Chronicle, including all the short stories and novellas. So I wanted to make this video to help clear all that up and give you guys the definitive reading order for the Kingkiller Chronicle. It isn't really that difficult, but I might as well just put this video out there to help direct people that are just getting into the series. Okay, first off, if you're interested in reading these books and you've never really heard much about them before, you should be aware this is an unfinished series. Now, we don't really know when the final book is going to be released. It has been, I guess, almost 13 years now since the release of The Wise Man's Fear. And it's kind of uncertain whether Patrick Rothfuss is going to finish the third book, The Doors of Stone. So while the writing in the Kingkiller Chronicle is beautiful, the world building and mystery is fantastic, you just might have to theorize your own ending for it. And that's why I've made a lot of theory videos, because there's a lot of loose ends, but there's a lot of clues and little small hidden details within the series. The more you reread these books, the more you pick up on all the small details. Okay, moving on to the obvious. There's only 2 books in the Kingkiller Chronicle, so obviously you read them in that order. You read book 1, The Name of the Wind, and book 2, The Wise Man's Fear. You guys know how to count. Then we're waiting on the third book, The Doors of Stone. But you might be wondering where some of the short stories and novellas fit in. There's The Slow Regard of Silent Things, The Lightning Tree, The Narrow Road Between Desires, How Old Holly Came to Be, and Laniel Young-Again. If you're new to the series or you're just not up to date, then you might be completely unaware of some of these, so let's go over them. The Slow Regard of Silent Things gives us a different perspective. It focuses on Ari, a mysterious character that Kvothe meets at the university in the main series. Although not directly related to the main plot of the series, this does offer some insight to Ari's world and some depth to the narrative. It's a very odd novella in that nothing really happens, but I kind of love it. It's a poetic and introspective journey through Ari's daily life in the tunnels beneath the university called the Underthing. It covers 7 days where she's waiting for a visit from Kvothe. Rothfuss's prose is lyrical and evocative, and it creates this really just atmospheric experience. All with some wonderful artwork by Nate Taylor, who I'll be mentioning again later. Now, Slow Regard is not going to be for everyone, and it's not required reading, so I would only recommend reading it if you like Ari as a character, then you're going to enjoy this as well. I've heard some people say they started with this. I wouldn't really recommend that, but if you want to, go ahead. I mean, technically both the Kingkiller novellas are standalones. You can read them before or after. I'm gonna give you my opinion though. Slow Regard takes place between the events of chapter 4 of The Wise Man's Fear, Tar and Tin, and chapter 11, Haven. And if you read closely, you can see directly where it kind of fits in between these chapters. So if you really want to know what was going on with Ari during this time, you could stop at this point when reading The Wise Man's Fear and read The Slow Regard of Silent Things, and then go back to The Wise Man's Fear. Personally, I would save that for a different read-through. On your first read, I think you should just focus on reading The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear. You're likely gonna want to be focused on Kvothe's story. Now moving on to The Lightning Tree. This is a companion novella to the series. It's listed as book 2.4, and it was originally published on June 7th, 2014 in the Rogues Anthology, a fantastical short fiction collection compiled and edited in part by George R.R. Martin. It is a bit difficult to find copies of Rogues these days. I kind of regret trading it into a used bookshop just earlier in this year. Anyway, The Lightning Tree acts as sort of a prequel. The novella sets its eye upon the shape and flux of an average day for Bast, the assistant at the Waystone Inn, and the Kingkiller Chronicle's most lovable fae. Now, I say prequel of sorts because it does take place prior to the chronicler arriving at the Waystone Inn. The Lightning Tree basically just gives us a glimpse into the life of Bast in the town of Noir, and we learn a little bit more about fae magic. However, the Lightning Tree is actually an older older and shorter version of the narrow road between desires. The Lightning Tree was the original, and this acts as sort of a remastered edition. It has almost double the page count, and it has a lot of really awesome artwork, again done by Nate Taylor, and it's all wrapped up in this beautiful hardcover that you can put on the shelf right next to the Slow Regard of Silent Things. This means that the Lightning Tree is kind of obsolete now. You don't need to read it. You can read this. It's the same story, but it just has more added to it. Really, the only reason to read the Lightning Tree now would be to compare it to this one, I guess. But this is the canon version. Now, Rothfuss wanted to re-release the story because many fans didn't even know about the Lightning Tree, and it's hard to get your hands on it, so it makes sense to re-release it. But instead of just putting the Lightning Tree out there again, he decided to rework it and tinker around, and that's what we have here today. I've seen some people complaining that he's just recycling the same story. The thing is though, this is the remastered one. There's a lot more added to it. It is the same story, but there's a lot more details, and the artwork by Nate Taylor I just think is fantastic. Really, this is more so marketed towards people who didn't read the Lightning Tree before, and they want to experience it. Now, I would say that overall, I prefer the Slow Regard of Silent Things, because I love Ari more than I do Bast, but this one is still pretty good. I have a few critiques for it, but overall, I enjoyed it. I put up a full video review if you want to hear all my thoughts. Now again, it does take place before The Name of the Wind, but personally, I would just wait until you're done the main series before picking this up. By then, you're gonna start the long wait for book 3 anyway, and you're gonna be looking for something else to read. I enjoyed the interactions between Bast and the children and all the townsfolk of Noir. Also, this book introduces Embrels, this kind of fortune-telling thing to the world of Temerant, so that's pretty interesting. And it gives us a bit more details on Fey magic. So all of that I found to be really fascinating. Overall, it's not something you need to read. I don't think it's really going to be necessary for the plot of the Kingkiller Chronicle. Basically, for those diehard fans who just want a light story that doesn't have big stakes, and you just want to follow Bast. Now, if you missed my last video, I am currently doing a giveaway for the Narrow Road Between Desires, along with some really cool art prints and the new Talon Penance Piece coin. So if you want a chance to be one of 2 lucky winners, make sure to watch that video for more details. How Old Holly Came to Be. This was first released in 2013 in an anthology called Unfettered. It's very hard to find a physical copy of this anthology, again, but you can buy an e-version, and you can also just read this story online. This is a charming little short story that's not related to Kvothe's story at all. It's a standalone, and it's kind of more of a poem or song than a proper story. I would say it's best for those that get really into theory crafting or that just want to read whatever Rothfuss puts out there. But How Old Holly Came to Be is probably the least talked about Temerant story out there, and I can see why. It's very vague. The story describes a tree, Old Holly, and a lady living in a tower by the tree. All the actions and events are labeled as good, bad, both, or neither. It's a very odd book. Maybe it's kind of hinting at the Lethani. It's hard to say. It's a very odd one for sure, but it's a very quick read. I'll try to link it in the description if I can find where you can read it online. Now, it does take place centuries before the Kingkiller Chronicle, so you can read it before if you want to. I wouldn't really advise to though, because I don't think it's the best of Rothfuss's writing, and probably not a good introductory point, but it's more so just an extra thing that you can read if you choose. Okay, moving on to Laniel Young-Again. Now, this is an old story that Rothfuss has been working on, but it's unfinished, so you might not have heard of it. He did read a prologue though, which was transcribed to Reddit, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. Laniel Young-Again is a prequel novel set in Modeg, around 150 to 200 years prior to The Name of the Wind. It tells the origin of one of the legendary figures in Temerant, Laniel Young-Again, a woman who decides to go out and see the world after marrying and raising her kids. Now, Laniel Young-Again never appears in The Name of the Wind, but she is mentioned twice in The Wise Man's Fear. She's the subject of a duet sung by 2 women, and the subject of several stories mentioned in the same breath as Oren Velsider and Ilian. Now in 2014, Rothfuss mentioned that he originally envisioned this as a novella, but then it grew into a 100,000 word novel. But after publishing The Slow Regard of Silent Things, Rothfuss's editor, Betsy Wollheim, decided that The Doors of Stone should be released first. And Rothfuss estimated that Laniel Young-Again had been 2/3 complete before he had to shelve it to focus on The Doors of Stone. And that leads us to the final book on the reading list, The Doors of Stone itself. Now, if you happen to be a time traveler from the future and you've had the chance to read The Doors of Stone and finally finish this trilogy that we've all been waiting for, hey, if you are, then please try to contact me in 3, 2, 1. Anyways, so the reading order: read The Name of the Wind, read The Wise Man's Fear, then go and read The Slow Regard, read the Narrow Road Between Desires, and How Old Holly Came to Be. And then I'd suggest like finding something else to read instead of constantly asking the author when book 3 is gonna come out. There's a lot of other great books out there that you can read in the meantime. I've never really understood readers that get so obsessed with the final book in a trilogy that they just won't give it up. I really enjoyed my time with the Kingkiller Chronicle. I don't regret reading them. I do hope one day we'll get a conclusion, but overall, I'm happy just having read them. There's plenty of other amazing books out there that you should go read. And that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to join my Discord server if you want to join a really welcoming community of fantasy fans, then make sure to check it out. Also, if you love the videos that I do and you want to help support the channel, then make sure to join my Patreon. I want to say a huge thank you to all my patrons. You guys make these videos possible. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you soon.